Welcome to this very special edition of the KAJ Masterclass Live, the show which ensures that you profit from your time spent here with experts either through the industry insights, information, or simply learning from them. And before I move forward, a very happy Republic Day to each one of you in India. This is the 75th Republic Day, and on this day, the Indian Constitution came into effect. So, happy Republic Day once again. Officially, it's tomorrow, but why? What stops us from celebrating from today itself? So, now moving on to the show. Today, we have Tom Dardick. He is the creator of the Eye of Power model, which lights the path to our personal power. He is also a podcast host, author, and people strategy consultant. Welcome to the show, Tom.
Thank you, AJ. What a great occasion to be on the show, too. Republic Day, wonderful thing to keep in mind and, maximize our freedoms and our voice in the world. That's our personal power, and that's what the Eye of Power is about. So we're really aligned.
Absolutely. Freedom is about individuals' freedom in culminating in collective freedom, and collective freedom culminating in individual freedom, because it safeguards freedom of each and everyone. That's the thing behind it. So we'll be talking about personal power. You talk about that people have Tom, you talk about that everyone has the ability to create the life they are born to live. And so what is it that stops them from living the life that they have the ability? Who takes it away? Is it ourselves or someone else?
Well, that's a fantastic question, AJ. The basic idea there is, I don't know in India whether you do New Year's resolutions, but it's big in America and the West, where come the first day of the year, everybody's deciding, okay, this year no more of this, or I'm going to do more of that, and then the joke happens to be that, is it going to be days or weeks when we revert back to where we were before? So we know we want to be healthier. We know we want to stop doing this habit that has negative effects. We know we want to start this other habit that we know will have positive effects, yet we can't sustain the effort. And so I would say in those types of examples, that the answer to your question is the power resides within. Why can't we just decide to do something and then just do it? And it starts with how we're thinking, of course, but it's not just an intellectual exercise, right? I mean, let's just take the example of somebody wanting to be healthier. It's not that they don't know what to do, that they should move more and consume less and stop eating things that we know are bad for us. It's fairly simple as to how to move in that direction. So it's not necessarily not knowing. It's not an intellectual exercise. The problem is that we think we know ourselves, but it's almost like an iceberg, where what we know is that part that shows above the water, and a lot of what makes us up remains out of our conscious mind in our below the surface of the water. And so we need help to be able to see that and integrate those parts so that we come in alignment, so that we can act with more conscious direction.
Right, Tom. So when we talk of personal power, when it is our power, you talk about 4 ways we unwittingly give our personal power away. Help us understand, so that people do not give away something so precious. Many a times in this whole process, you give your own identity away and you are left with nothing. I want to understand these 4 ways for our audience.
Very good. So in the Eye of Power model, the things we start with that keep us sort of stuck in place, not able to make the positive changes we want, I call those the 4 corruptions. And they correspond to one in each one of the model is a quadrant based with 4 layers in each quadrant. And those quadrants are derived by mapping our actions and attitudes. So that's one of the axes. So what we do, what we think, and that's against whether it's towards ourselves or towards others. So that's ourself and society. So you take actions and attitude toward ourself and others, and that creates this sort of grid. And so in each one of those grids is its own corruption. There's 4 layers. So there's a corruption layer, there's a quest layer, there's a capacities, and there's traps. And so that's how the model's built out. So to answer the question directly, in each one of the quadrants is its own corruption, and we have them in various degrees, directed in various ways. It's not a one thing that everybody shares. It's something, and it's different. It could be you're feeling like you're corrupted in one direction of life, but it doesn't affect another aspect of life. So it's complicated, and that's why the model can be helpful, because it's hard maybe to find that thing that is really the thing holding you. So to answer the question directly, in what I call the pain quadrant, which is the action towards ourself, the corruption there is what I call consternation. It's a fear. It's a type of fear where we're building this sort of imaginary reality that we think might happen or will happen, and therefore not doing that thing for that reason. In the perception quadrant, which is our attitude toward ourselves, it's more confusion. It's more we don't see things very clearly. So because of that, we have ideas that are either in conflict or perhaps even working directly against us. Then in the people quadrant, which is our attitude towards others, that one, the corruption there is condemnation. So we it's a sort of judgment, right? But it's the kind of we all have to judge because we have values, but the kind of judging that is dismissive, that says I don't deal with this kind of person or this kind of situation. I'm putting that away, rejecting it, and putting a barrier between. And then the final corruption is in the purpose quadrant. That's our actions towards society, towards other people, and that is that's a sort of apathy. I call it carelessness to keep the symmetry with the C's, but it's basically not being engaged with really our own purpose, our own sort of. We might not know what our gifts are and how we put them to service to other people. So those are the four things that we have to face in some sort of combination.
Right, right. So, Tom, I want to understand, if is personal power the same abilities with everyone in slightly bit of a different way in terms of skill, or is it different for everyone? How do I know what my personal powers are? And a lot of people say, people, uh, you give away the best of you, like sharing knowledge, and you will gain more. Here you are talking about that when we give away these powers, you lose here. So I want to understand the difference between the personal power that you give, that can do good for everyone, including coming to you many folds, and the one which you should not give. I want to understand a bit about that.
Wonderful. That's a great question, and I would say I would start with the meaning of the words. So when I say personal power or agency, I'm talking about the ability to decide something and make it happen, the ability to manifest, to imagine and manifest an outcome along the lines of what you imagine. Of course, the best laid plans never work out, but the good news is that we learn along the way. So what we think we want, we may or may not want that, and we don't even know what the rewards are as we pursue a goal or a path. So for those reasons, we should use a sort of a light touch as we author our lives. The sense of power to serve other people, I would use the word service or contribution, where the more I can contribute, the more I can affect somebody else's life. You could call that powerful because we're making a big difference, but it's not quite the same as personal power. It is in the sense that I'm helping, but it's really a different thing because it's really it goes to what you started with the relationship between our individual freedoms and our collective freedoms, where we are part of a whole. So it's a contribution to a shared cause or outcome that we're giving our gifts to, that is beyond what we would do. It resonates out through society.
Right, right, Tom. Let's come down to the workplace. How do I exercise my personal power there? Is it a place where I leave everything to the leaders, supervisors, or is there a scope, or is it the right place to exercise my personal powers there? How does that work? how does it work for leaders? What is the role of the leaders? Many times leaders consider their personal sort of a understanding of power, and that culminates into toxic workplaces leading to great resignations and all. So how should
Sure.
leaders understand their personal power there? Help us understand both from the employee perspective as well as from the leader's perspective how to make the best of this personal power in a workplace like situation.
It's a wonderful place to put the spotlight. Because when we think about power, when we think about it as authority over other people, we're no longer talking about the same thing that we've been pointing to all along here. Authority is a different thing where I can tell you, you do it and you have to do it. You have no choice unless you want to quit or find another line of work, another team to be on, something like that. That's not the same thing. So I would make a distinction between authority and the power we're talking about. Now, having said that, a leader is much, much better when they are a force multiplier than when they are sort of a person that's rearranging the furniture and saying, okay, here, you do this, and I'm just sort of taking the pieces and moving them around based on my what I think is best. That is a far more limiting vision than it is to empower each one of those persons to be their full agent and allow them to get a little bit better every day, a little bit more either effective or productive or connected to the whole or sharing the mission or slightly more enthusiasm or a little bit more clear. And I'm nurturing that mentality of the team, and I'm constantly putting logs on that fire, and then just making sure that we're aligned. I'd say the job of leadership is really focus and aligning and making sure that individual goals match shared goals, and that's really the work of the leader.
Right, right, Tom. So let's now come down to your, eye of power model. You are the creator of the eye of power model. Help us understand, which lights the path to our personal power. So tell us a bit about your model so that we people can learn about this too.
So I looked at the world and I see it's not, there's lots of different models, lots of different things that address these issues that we're talking about. There's no shortage. Yet as we move forward in the world, and one of the big tectonic movements now is, of course, automation, and we don't know where this crazy thing's going to end up.
Right, absolutely.
We're changing the relationship between what it means to be a productive person and what work in the workplace is going to be, and we're doing it so fast that we don't really know where it's going to end up. And so we just the idea of doing work, of doing something that is a productive thing that's causing a good in the world, that's not going to be, it's going to be a rising bar where automation is going to continue to sort of replace what people have done for time immemorial. And so we're going to have to find different paradigms, different solutions. So to me, the work becomes, what is it that connects us and fulfills us in whenever we're doing a shared enterprise, whenever we're working together to make something happen? We have to be focused on that whole human connective element of things, much more looking through that lens and less through the transactional lens of, you do this job, you do this for this way, you produce this many calls or service this many clients or produce this many widgets or whatever it might be. We have to move away from that to the former. And so the work becomes really one of digging into what's real and true within and without, as it relates to our relationships and what values we have.
Right, right, Tom. You also have, there is much to learn about these things. People can learn about this model from you. You also have the Eye of Power podcast by the same name. So, and you are the podcast host of that. So, help us understand what this podcast is all about and what people can learn from in this podcast.
Sure. So there, as I started the podcast, it was me pontificating about the issues like we're talking about, maybe picking an aspect of the model and using a topical discussion about what that might look like, and sort of going around and dealing with issues, anything that relates with moving something out of our way that blocks us from our ability to manifest more of our agency. That's the topics are all related around that. Now, in the past couple of few months here, I've moved into having guests. So we'll have discussions such as what you and I are having right now, AJ, where we might talk about, their particular path, their particular idea, and how that might help the audience or the listener maybe make an adjustment in their life to help them move just a little bit forward. I don't believe in magic answers or quick fixes or pills to fix all ills. I think the work of life is a little bit increments every day, just the consistent and persistent tiny bits over time, compounding. That's how you get from a place where you feel sort of less than or trapped to a place where you feel more fulfilled, more free, more fully expressed of who you are authentically in the world.
Right, right, Tom. Let me also take this opportunity to understand about your book, Sudden Onset,
Okay,
which you have
wonderful.
written, which you have written with your brother. That's a PhD, a molecular biologist with the US FDA. Tell us a bit, about your book. Who is this book for? What this book is all about?
Thank you for asking about that. It's a little bit of a departure, but not really, because most of what we believe is a partial picture, right? We are beings of limited perceptive powers. So, in other words, we can be expert. So that means that I know, like, if most people know this and I know this much, I look like I know twice as much as everybody else compared to what there is to know. It's a
Right,
huge gap, right? So we need humility, and so my brother as a molecular biologist works in plants and throughout his scientific career he just kept getting more and more amazed and in awe at the workings of life. What does it mean for something to be alive? And for his path, he's sort of unusual because his path was sort of atheistic, materialistic as in the start. And he came to sort of see, wait a minute here, there is more than meets the eye to the world. And so he had some technical reasons for that. And I thought that was interesting, and I said, well, if you write a paper on that, of just a few people will read it. But if we could tell a story, maybe it would be interesting. So that's what we did, and it took us 10 years to get the project together, because as you're reading this story about this molecular biologist who's brought in, there's a crisis in the beginning where there's this entity. They don't know what it is. They call it SONA in the book. It's sudden onset necrosis agent. And so they can't stop it. It causes like an immediate with anything alive, it just absorbs the material. And it's sort of like if you've seen like in the end of Harry Potter, what happens when you cast the spell and Voldemort goes away, or it does that to your flesh, and it's really horrific. Anyway, they can't figure out what it is. And it looks like it's this life form that's not related to anything else in the world. All life comes from a singular pattern, a singular code, a universal code in our genetic structure for everything that's alive. And so the question is, well, why is there only one? Why couldn't there be more than one? If it happened once, it could happen a different way. And that's never happened. So in our novel, it looks like this is what's happened. And so as they're unraveling the mystery, you're sort of learning about what the workings of life are, and how really majestic and amazing uh, the creation of life really is.
absolutely, absolutely. How majestic the creation of life really is, and how one can make the best use of who they are, what they can do, what they can become with the power that they have, God gifted power, which we all have to realize and understand in the right way. As said, there is so much to learn about these things from you, Tom. And for those people who want to learn more about you, more from you, what is the best way for them to connect with you?
Well, listen to the I Have Power podcast. IHavePower.com is my website. And anybody who's interested in connecting with me is certainly welcome on social media platforms such as Facebook, LinkedIn, Instagram, uh, X, any of those kinds of things. However, but wants to reach out, I'm up for the discussion.
Absolutely. With this, it's a wrap on this very special edition of the KAJ Masterclass Live. Thank you so much indeed for joining us.
Enjoy your Republic Day.
Thank you.